Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so thank you again so much for meeting with me. I'm so excited to learn about everything. And yeah, so for my project, we're basically interviewing 4 different jobs. So usually we do 2, and we go for a week and we shadow them. But this year we're doing it over Zoom with 4 different people instead. So I'm glad we get to do it, but I do wish we could have gone in person, but I'm just glad we get to do it anyways. Sorry. Okay.
No problem.
I guess we can go ahead and start with my questions. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So the first one was, where did you attend college and what did you major in?
So I attended college at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I majored in chemistry, and I have minors in forensic science and law.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I graduated in 2012. So, feels like a long time ago.
That's cool because I really like biology and chemistry, and I think I definitely want to minor in something like forensic science. So that's pretty cool. So then were these majors and minors a necessary part to get your job? Like, were you thinking of these when in your head for your job?
No. So I've always had a passion for the sciences. Math and science have always been my strong suit. So when I went to school, to college, it was kind of just a natural desire to take my studies along that way. In high school, I was always in more math and science classes than anything else. Originally, when I went to school, I had intended to be more in the forensic science world, but I was a Canadian citizen when I graduated, so getting a degree in the government when you're not an American citizen was not really going to happen. And so, but I'm also someone who's grown up in the clinical research world. That being said, my mom has worked in clinical research for over 35 years. So I'm what we like to call sort of like a clinical research child, baby. Yeah. So it's a world I know a lot about just from having my mom be a part of it. My world has kind of grown up that way. So I think that's probably a big reason why sciences has been my strong suit a lot in life. So I think if you enjoy it, you kind of lead that way. But I also know some of my colleagues didn't graduate with, science degrees, and they ended up in this career path as well.
Right. Okay. Very cool. Let me see. Okay. So how did you end up choosing this specific career? Like, what drew you in about it? What I guess enticed you kind of to like go into this field? Maybe I think definitely like your science background, but was there anything else that kind of played a role in it?
So yes, originally when I graduated, I ended up teaching elementary school students for 6 years, but something was missing. So my passion for science was always there, and my love for being with like people and my students, and that connection was there with teaching. But having that drive for utilizing my degree and my love of sciences was not there. And so I think initially I shied away from clinical research because it felt like that was a path that someone else in my family had kind of defined as their own. But I was able to realize that there was a whole other side to it, which is this patient side, not the drug development side, which would encompass me being able to be one-on-one with the patients, which would be that interpersonal relationship side that I had teaching, as well as encompass my love and passion for science, and it was all encompassed in one career that basically was already out there for me. And so I actually started out on a very different path, and ended up here because of some of the things that I guess I was able to find along the way, and realize that that perfect career was already out there. I just needed to find it.
Yeah. Okay. Super cool. Okay, let me see. Okay, so what would be your favorite part about your job and your least favorite part about your job?
So my favorite part of the job is those one-on-one patient interactions, and getting to help a patient that potentially has, something that they ultimately, nothing's working for them. There's really nothing out there, and they have the chance to potentially find something to help them so that their daily life is more bearable. But also to have that feeling that maybe if it's not perfect or things don't get, 100% better for them, they know that they're helping it be better for someone in the future. And to just hear stories about how, someone's grandparent was a part of a clinical trial, and now that medication or treatment is available and saved the life of, their grandson or granddaughter. Those are my favorite parts of the job, is being one-on-one with those patients and just knowing that you're ultimately making a huge difference in their life by helping bring research as a care option to them, which is ultimately what Javara likes to present it as. It's a part of their their care plan. It's not just. The least favorite part of my job is when, I guess, on the large scale, we're doing these very large scale trials where we have hundreds and hundreds of patients that we're seeing in such a short period of time, like vaccine trials for COVID-19, for example, is that you just don't get to have sort of that one-on-one, that personal relationship with them, and and you hope that you're making them feel like they're as important as everyone out there. It's just due to the time constraints of needing to get, across a study like 30,000 patients, and we are seeing, 500 in 6 weeks. You just want to make sure that they know that they are just as important as everybody, and you don't want them to feel like they are not receiving as much care as the next person. And so it's just, that can sometimes be my least favorite part of the job, is having someone feel like we're not treating them like they're number one in our book. I guess sort of like crank out patients in a way without it sounding like we don't care. Because we do.
Definitely. Okay. The next one would be, so do you work more as part of a team, or are you more by yourself with like these one-on-one patients or whatever happens during the day?
So overall, I am one person on a team. So not only a team here in Charlotte, but we like to consider ourselves a team at Javara as a whole. Now, within each individual trial, your roles and responsibilities can be different. And so there can be times where you might see a patient from a visit from start to finish, and so that could be more of an individual aspect, but there could also be certain visit types where you and a colleague might break the visit up into sort of stations or tasks, and so there could be 4 or 5 of you that might see the same patient in a same day. And so I'd say we definitely are a team, but during any given day, the way we would see a patient would be relative to the trial, and how it would best benefit the patient to get everything fit in for that appointment. So for this current trial that we're working on, our vaccine trial for Moderna, I am the unblinded pharmacist, and so that requires me to work one-on-one with one of my other staff members, and we are the only two that actually work together. So we are kind of partners,
right.
but as far as everything that we do, we work together, and we don't really associate with anybody else on the team because we are aware of what every single patient is getting, whether they're getting the vaccine or the placebo. And so we verify each other's work, but as far as us and, you know, interacting much with any of our other team members, it doesn't happen just because our responsibilities for the study are very different. So we actually work in a completely separate space and a completely separate room, even down to having, you know, our own printer and things like that, just so our paperwork isn't even mixed up with theirs.
Oh, wow.
And our, you know, our doors have different locks than theirs. And so just, and so that would be an example where for this study, I'm kind of more by myself or with a partner, where for other studies, I would definitely be more intermixed with my other team members. It's just how my role for this study is a little bit different.
Right. Okay. So this might be a little off topic, but I really am interested in hearing about the corona vaccine that you're working on right now. So I definitely want to include that in when I talk, because people are definitely interested in it like I am. So if you want to go into that a little.
So we're currently working on the Moderna RMNA 1273 study. It's currently it's phase 3. So we in Charlotte are the only Charlotte location. And we have enrolled over 400 patients as of today, which is wonderful. So it is an RMNA vaccine. So it does, you know, it does not include a live virus by any means. It actually just includes like a part of the protein from the strand, and so it actually works with our DNA in our body to actually help build, you know, the necessary antibodies for us to fight it. And so each of the patients come in to get screened, and then if everything goes well, they receive their first injection, and it is a 1-to-1 randomization. So 50% of the patients across the country are receiving the vaccine, and 50% are receiving the placebo.
Okay.
And they do not know.
Okay.
And what is happening is that then 29 days later, they will come back in and receive a second injection, which will be the same as the first, but again, they're not told what that is. And so what we do at the sites is we're actually taking blood from them pre-injection, and then it's getting tested for antibodies throughout the course of the study. So that very first day before they get their first injection, we take their blood. And when they come in for their second injection, we take blood from them again. They're going to come in again a month later for a third visit, take their blood. So they actually will come in 6 times over the course of 2 years. It's a 2-year-long study to continue testing the antibodies of this vaccine. And so these patients have agreed to be a part of it and be monitored for 2 years. We also perform safety calls with them to just ensure that, you know, they're feeling well, they don't have any symptoms, just in general. If anybody starts to not feel well, we actually will then, you know, administer a unscheduled visit to go have them tested, make sure that they don't in fact have COVID-19. And if they do, we'll actually then, our physicians would give them telemedicine visits for at least 14 days, if not longer. And so by being a part of this trial, they actually get additional health care on top of their regular internal medicine physicians, because so within that month, for example, between their first injection and their second injection, we would reach out to them 3 times. So basically once a week to just check up on them, as well as them entering how they're doing into an e-diary that we can check. Like, are they having, what was their temperature? Do they have any, muscle aches, body aches? And they kind of rate them on a scale, and then we can review that data. And if there's anything the physician, feels needs to be addressed, we can then reach out to them. And so they're actually very highly monitored throughout the study, in a sense that by participating, they're kind of they're giving this data so it can be monitored, but also given everything everyone's going through, they're getting the opportunity to sort of self-check themselves a little bit more as well. And they do then also have nasal swabs performed, so that they are constantly, being checked for COVID-19 to ensure that the antibodies that they may or may not be producing are not because they have been exposed to COVID-19. And so that's how we can help Moderna actually ensure that the results that might be showing up in their blood is actually due to the vaccine that they may have received, if that they are one of those patients, instead of them being potentially exposed to COVID-19 out in public. Right.
That's so cool to me. Very cool. Is there a specific for the screening process, is there specific age limits and things like that for them?
So Moderna was interested in people so they kind of broke it up into over 18 to 65, over 18 being that they didn't require, parental consent. And then healthy, as well as anybody that had, would make them high risk, asthma, underlying heart conditions, things like that, would actually make them high risk. They also then, if you were 65 or older, that actually made you high risk no matter what. So you didn't need to have any underlying medical conditions to make you high risk. If once you turned 65, you kind of became 65 plus high risk, period. And so those were kind of the 3 categories. And then within those 3 categories, they were also then, they're also tracking people's ethnic and racial diversity, so that we can ensure that across the board, there's proper enrollment in all of those categories, so that the effectiveness of the vaccine can be shown for all age groups and all ethnic and racial populations. And so I do know that, it's been a lot of individuals, a lot of Caucasian individuals who are 65 and older have actively stepped up to enroll, especially for us here in Charlotte. And so that was actually something that we hit our limit on. They've kind of said, hey, you've done a great job. We have enough of those individuals. Could you please focus on, the younger demographic and those of ethnic and racial diversity? And so now that we, are continuing to enroll, we're focusing on what they've asked us to, so that we can help add to that population for their numbers as they continue to get closer and closer to the 30,000 that they need for the study.
Okay. So is that the only vaccine you're working on right now, or is this just one of them out of a bunch you're doing, or is that like is that the only one you're
So,
doing now?
so that is the one we're working on right now. In the next couple of months, there is the opportunity that we will be potentially working on a couple more. They just haven't been finalized. I know that our partners, like our Javara teammates in Houston, are working on the AstraZeneca vaccine. I know that there's been a lot of, news around it, just because they were ensuring that that individual in the United Kingdom, everything was okay and everything's being reviewed. And I do believe that it has been stated that it was not related to the vaccine. And so I do know that they were put on hold just while all of that was being sorted out by the higher ups for AstraZeneca, which is very common in clinical research. And so now that everything's kind of being, buttoned up and everything, they'll be getting ready to start revamping up. But they had started, and then just due to that, everybody was put on pause. But I know that they are working on the AstraZeneca study. So while we were focusing sort of on Moderna here, they had AstraZeneca in Houston. And then our Javara teammates in High Point at the Wake Forest Center are also working on Moderna. And so those are the two ones that are currently enrolling right now. I know that like Janssen, and I know there's like a Merck one and things like that, but those phase 3 haven't started enrolling anywhere. So so as of right now at Javara, those are the ones that we have going.
Okay.
And Moderna is a part of the Warp Speed trials, so which is really cool, which means they're really getting everything going really quickly, which is a lot of fun. And so is AstraZeneca.
Okay.
So.
Very cool. Okay, so next I guess we'll kind of talk about just the overview of your work week. So about how many hours do you work in a normal week?
So before this vaccine trial started, my normal week would be a typical week. 40 hours a week would be very common between patient visits and patient enrollment and just regular office work. A 40-hour week would definitely be common. Okay. Right now, the hours I'm working are definitely not typical, but that is because we are very focused on getting, putting the patients first and getting them enrolled in these vaccine trials. So right now it's not uncommon for me to get here, a little before 7 when our first patient arrives. And depending on how late we have patients, I can be here till 6 or 7 in the evening, Monday through Friday. So that's quite a little bit more than the 40 hours. But again, for me, it's definitely worth it, knowing that we are providing the patients this opportunity to be a part of making history, I guess is the way I like to think about it.
Right.
And we couldn't be here without them. So putting in those extra hours is definitely, in the long run, worth the opportunity.
Okay, so going along with like your typical week, I guess maybe just like run through a quick maybe like about what you do during like a typical day, like I guess with your patients.
So a typical day outside of a COVID-19 day, so my day would encompass, I could have some staff meetings, as well as I would be making some recruitment calls to potential patients that, after reviewing their charts and talking with the physicians that I work with, because we're actually integrated in their space. So like right behind me is actually a physician's office. So one of the physicians we work with. And so we are, integrated in their space so we can work with them one-on-one. And so if they have a patient that they feel would be a great fit for one of the trials we're working on, they can refer them to us, or even if they're in the office for an appointment, we can actually have the opportunity to discuss it with them one-on-one. And so we can make some recruitment calls and screen their, charts and check their eligibility and discuss things with them, and potentially get them appointments set up for them to come in at a later date. If, I might have some patient visits, and depending on the study, that could take an hour, that could take multiple hours. It would just depend on the type of study I'm working on, which, because we are working with Tryon, the building that we're in, we're blessed to have internal medicine physicians all the way through, gastro and cardiology, dermatology, sleep medicine, oncology. They're all in this building. Right. So we get the opportunity to work on various different trials. Right. And so if a device trial, the appointment would probably not be much longer than an hour, just due to it not needing, blood work or things like that, where, if we were just, looking at a gastroenterology trial, that would probably be a multiple hour patient visit. We would be taking labs, and then potentially dosing them with medication, and depending on the type of medication, that medication might need to be delivered over multiple hours itself.
Right.
And then on top of that, once the patient leaves, if labs were taken, I would then be in charge of actually like spinning the labs and then getting them packed up and shipped out to go, to whichever place would be responsible. Some of them are Covant, some are Icon. So depending on the study, we would work with numerous different labs.
Okay.
Then I was going to say, so I could also have, an SIV or a pre-site visit, like if we had a new study coming on board, I could have meetings with that where monitors might be coming both on site, or it could be done virtually. And so that can all happen, so all of those things could definitely happen like all in one day. They could, depending on what's happening, they could happen over the course of a week. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot of things, but I guess depending on what task you're working on, you could probably, I could fill my whole day with just patient recruitment.
Yeah, with one thing, right.
Sometimes you can lose your time, like just screening patient charts, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's 4 hours.
Yeah, definitely.
And sometimes like pre-site visits or site initiation visits can take 4 or 5 hours. And so that's really that's almost like a whole day in itself. Especially that's just with the person, so you might want to come in and get yourself get the documents prepped and put in the room, and so you give yourself an hour before, and then all of a sudden really that's 6 hours of your day. And if you were only there for 8 hours,
right,
in the long scheme of things, that could be your whole Tuesday.
Right.
And so that's probably, I guess, one of the other things that, going back to one of your first questions, I do love about my job is that there's a lot of versatility in your week, and you're not going to come in and feel the repetition. Your days are going to be different, and your weeks are going to be different.
Right.
So it's not going to, at least for me, it doesn't get boring. It doesn't get repetitive. And you can have a lot of fun with it in playing, I guess, around with your schedule. Because, so yeah, you want to work the patient visits in with what's best for the patient, but then you can also work your other work in around it to what works best for you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this just had me thinking, do you have a favorite like trial you've worked on, or maybe a favorite patient that's like really stuck out to you, or like something like that?
So they actually weren't a patient. They were the daughter of a patient.
Okay.
And they came in with their mom, and they were being really, really patient with having to accompany their mom to the appointment. It was at the time that, you know, schools had started closing early due to, you know, COVID-19 kind of happening back in March, April, and everyone trying to figure out the best thing to do. And so there was no, you know, pre-K classes for her to be going to. And so she had a teddy bear with her, and they were at the doctor. And so it was kind of important to her that her teddy bear got checked out. Like she was at a doctor's office, and you know, her teddy bear wasn't feeling well, and so she needed her teddy bear to get looked at. But she was really shy and didn't want to ask. And so we could tell that, you know, she had been really patient, but you could just tell there was something on her mind. And we ended up figuring out that that's what she wanted. And so, but she didn't want us to do it. She wanted to do it. Like she wanted to take her teddy bear's temperature, and she wanted to take her teddy bear's blood pressure and things like that. And it just so happened that we had like this itty bitty pediatric blood pressure cuff that we were never going to be able to use. It just kind of came with our set. And I mean, we don't see pediatric patients in our office. And I mean, it would hardly fit around my wrist, let alone a patient. And so we gave it to her to take her teddy bear's blood pressure. And then we kind of had, both of us in the room had the same thought at the same time. And we were like, would you like to take it home since teddy bear's not feeling well, and you can, you know, check him later? And it just like made her day, because at this point she had been so patient and so well behaved, and you could just like see her smile, you know, lighten up, and you knew she didn't want to be there at the beginning. And so I think that's probably one of those moments that kind of still stick with me, just because, you know, it's when everyone's life was changing sort of back in March, April, and here this girl was being, you know, so patient with trying to figure out what her new normal would be. And she didn't know it, but she completely made our day by letting us be a part of, you know, her playing doctor on her teddy bear. So by, you know, like, hey, maybe one day she'll be the doctor that that changes the world and cures a disease. So yeah.
That's really sweet. Okay. Let's see. Probably just have about 2 more questions for you. So this, I don't know if there's really a direct answer here, but what ultimately led you to decide to work for Javara specifically? Like, did you have, like, were you picking, or did they choose you, or like, I guess, how did you end up working for Javara?
So I guess it was a little bit of a combination. So I ended up reaching out to Javara. I was looking for the opportunity to sort of get to experience Javara and what they were all about. And I asked if that would be possible. And they said, sure. Are you willing to go to Houston? And I was like, yeah. And so they were, the the team in Houston was willing to host me for a week and sort of put me up in a quote unquote sort of internship sort of way, I guess would be the best word. Allow me to experience Javara, allow me to experience how Javara integrates themselves into their practices, how they work directly with the physicians, and how they really take on CRACO, which is like clinical research as a care option for the patients. And just, and so I was there for a week, and I got to experience multiple different sites in Houston and work with the Houston team, and just really got the chance to experience Javara. And after that experience, I kind of fell in love with Javara and what they do. And it wasn't necessarily my intention to, at the beginning, to want to go after a job, because at the time there wasn't any available. I was just really hoping to learn from the experience, but I just, there was no backing down at that point. And so I really did sort of push and pursue and say, is there any way that there's a job?
Right.
And it just so happened that within the near future, there was going to be one. And it was going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, which meant I was going to, need to move, but I was willing to do it. I was willing, I wanted to be a part of this company. I wanted to be a part of the changes that they were going to make. And just the atmosphere that was Javara. Right. And so I asked my husband if he would be okay with moving south, and he was. And so a couple of months later, we packed up our lives and we moved from Indianapolis to Charlotte, North Carolina, and here we are. Yeah.
That's cool. That's a cool story of how you ended up there.
Yeah. So, and so it wasn't, I guess it wasn't necessarily that Javara sought me out, or it was definitely me probably in the end seeking Javara out. But it started out more as a chance for me to get to know the company. And then at that point, there was no backing down. Like, the company had me hooked. And I just don't think they realized it. So I wasn't going to be able to let them go. They reeled me in, and I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess just wrapping this up with like a final question would be, so what would you, I guess, why would you recommend this career to someone else? Like, I guess, what are your final thoughts about it? Like, and why someone should want to be a clinical trial navigator?
I guess it all comes down to if you enjoy being integrated with others, if you enjoy having those personal relationships with people, or the opportunity to meet new people, and then as well as the opportunity to potentially help develop things that are going to change the way we all see things. Because ultimately, even if we are working on a drug or a device or a vaccine that doesn't come to fruition, and maybe it isn't the end all be all, the thing is that you've had the opportunity to potentially enlighten people to what clinical research is. And even in today's world, that is still something that's so foreign to people. And so the chance for you to potentially be somebody who can offer that up to somebody, and to to give them a fighting chance or a new opportunity, something that maybe they would have never even known existed before, that's a game changer.
Right.
And maybe not just for them, but for countless other people that you may not even realize. And then there's also the chance that you might actually get to see, you know, something that you worked on that was just a number, you know, actually get a name and actually be put out there. And so that's just can also be so enlightening. And so I guess it just comes down to, it's more than just, you know, I guess working on drugs and seeing patients. It's sort of the connection, the emotional, that comes with it, the chance to really change lives for the better, and not just through medicine, but through other opportunities and experiences.
Right. That is very cool. Okay, I think you've answered all my questions. I definitely fulfilled all the goals I had to about what to learn about. So yeah, I got all my notes. So yeah, thank you so much for talking to me, because I really I have an interest in medicine, but at the same time, like, definitely research too as well. So I feel like this is kind of like an in the middle type of thing that I would definitely be interested in. When my mom was telling me about it for careers looking at, I was like, oh, that's definitely something I want to do, or learn about, interview about, because I just think it's really interesting. Like, in terms of research, it's definitely something I want to do, whether it's in medicine or not even. But yeah, so I think I'm trying to think of what else. I think the only thing else I need from you is I have a evaluation form that you fill out. It should just be a link to my school's website, and I think it's just a simple, like, filling out thing. But other than that, I really don't think you need to do anything else, because I have everything. I have all my notes and everything on Zoom. But if I do think of anything, I'll just email you. But I think it's really only that evaluation form, which I can just email you the link to, and it's really easy. Should be really easy.
Yeah.
But
no problem.
Yeah, this was my first shadowing. You were my first one, so I'm glad it went good, and I really appreciate you talking to me about this, because, like I said, I'm really interested in it, and I think it was a great way to start my shadowing, definitely. But
well, I'm happy to help, and I'm glad that, you know, I could be a part of it, and I really appreciate your flexibility. I know it's kind of, you know, late on a Friday.
Oh no, fine.
I think I saw 28 patients today, so and so yeah, you know, this is my, you know, I put on my best look for you.
Right.
But and so yeah, no, you've been great. It's been really easy to talk to you, and no, definitely, if you think of anything else you just want to have answered, whether it's, you know, related to, you know, your interview or just in general, please, you have my email, you have both of my office and my cell phone. You can reach out, text me, email me. It's not a problem. I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you again so much.